All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 61. And I am recording this mere, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 minutes after I recorded the one that you guys probably just watched. The reason why, is I have been inspired to talk about drama. Something I was not aware of. There is a YouTube channel that I vehemently despise. I will not be naming this YouTube channel because the purpose of the video is not to single out this particular YouTube channel, because the issue with that YouTube channel is the same issue that I have with the broad spectrum of D&D based YouTube channels on YouTube, which is they have this kind of D&D derangement syndrome thing where anything involving D&D is evil and disgusting and the worst thing ever, horrible, disgusting. It needs to die. It needs to burn forever, and literally every other RPG is vastly superior to Dungeons and Dragons. So, the new drama that this channel highlighted, and apparently is not incredibly known. Apparently, YouTube has their own YouTube channel. I know. I didn't know either. And a little while back, YouTube made a 3-minute long video talking about tabletop RPGs on YouTube. And in it, I have not seen this video, though with all of the highlights and things that was in the last video I just watched, pretty sure I've seen most of it. Because again, it's a 3-minute long video. This is not an epic 4-hour long documentary series. It's a 3-minute long video. And in the video, it highlights a bunch of different D&D content creators. One of the people that shows up, at least for a second, because I saw a screenshot of her in there, is friend of the channel, Dale Kingsmill. She is at Monarch's Factory on YouTube. She's amazing. She made a supplement for D&D 5th edition to do with myths and stuff, and I did an entire D&D deep dive series on it because it was amazing and awesome. And she actually played in my Power Rangers RPG because she's super awesome. So she showed up there, and the names that you would expect showed up on there. There was Dimension 20, Ginny D, a few other ones that I can't remember off the top of my head because my brain doesn't work. So, what's the problem with this video? Why is it creating so much drama? Well, the video focused almost entirely on Dungeons and Dragons. And Dungeons and Dragons is not tabletop role-playing. I mean, it is, and it did create the entire genre, and it is the most popular RPG in the world by an unbelievably massive margin. In fact, the closest competitor doesn't come anywhere near its sales or its popularity and gameplay. Oh, and the vast majority of RPG content on YouTube is Dungeons and Dragons or Dungeons and Dragons related. But that doesn't mean that D&D is tabletop role-playing games. And that's what the drama is. People got really pissed off that this 3-minute long video focused primarily on D&D. Now, it does mention other non-D&D content creators, but they really don't get a whole lot of time to shine because it's focusing on, and let me try and explain this in the simplest way possible. The most popular creators. Why is it focusing on the most popular creators? Because they make the money. Like, this is not difficult to understand whatsoever. Dungeons & Dragons is the most popular RPG in the world. Like I said, there are, as we have recently learned, there are areas of the world where it is not the number one game in that country. Brazil, it's Tormenta 20. Japan, it's Call of Cthulhu. However, when you look at the world as a whole, D&D outsells literally every other tabletop RPG. They probably, I don't know the exact numbers, but if I had to guess, I would say that they probably outsell the next like 10 closest competitors combined. I had that, I've mentioned this before. People like to claim, mostly Paizo and Paizo Bros, they like to claim that Paizo was the number one RPG for a while. It wasn't. What it was for about 9 months in 2013, I want to say. It's either 2012 or 2013. Wizards of the Coast wasn't selling anything. Like, they stopped publishing things for D&D 4th edition. And D&D 5th edition wasn't out yet. So for about 9 months, according to a single survey, like the only way that we know about RPG sales numbers, if you're not aware, there is this survey that happens, and I can't remember the name of the company that does it, but basically the way that it works is there's a company that, I can't remember, I think it's once a quarter, will call a bunch of brick and mortar game stores. And whoever is working at the time that this company call will pick up the phone. If they pick up the phone, they'll pick up the phone, and then the company will go, hey, we just want to ask you some questions about the stuff that you're selling. And so whoever's on the phone basically tells them, yeah, the things that are selling the most are Pathfinder and stuff like that. And that's it. They don't get actual sales numbers. And they only poll brick and mortar stores that they know about, that they have phone numbers for. So if it's a new store, if for whatever reason the store isn't open on the day that they're supposed to call, or the person that answers the phone is not incredibly knowledgeable and or has some sort of agenda that they don't want to talk about how popular a particular game system is or anything like that, there's no way to control for all of those variables. So that is the only numbers that we ever know. None of the major game publishers actually publish their sales numbers. The closest we've ever gotten to finding numbers other than that was there was some leaks. I want to say last year there was a leak that showed sales numbers from Walmart, specifically for D&D products. And so we actually got to see exactly how many things sell at Walmart. It's actually pretty interesting. Things like the most popular adventure was Curse of Strahd. And yeah, the sales numbers were crazy. Other than that one leak, we've never known what sales numbers are. We don't know how much Amazon sells on them. We don't know how much Walmart or other kind of big box retailers or Barnes and Noble. Any big companies like that, we have no idea. That particular survey only does effectively friendly local game stores. So it's a flawed survey, but it's the only one that we can have. And for 9 months, Pathfinder on that survey was selling more than D&D. Again, the only reason that was happening was D&D wasn't selling any products at that point. They'd stopped supporting 4th edition, 5th edition hadn't come out, and everything that they were publishing was being published for free through the D&D Next playtest. So Paizo was competing with nobody. And they claimed that they outsold D&D. They didn't. Even if those numbers were accurate, they didn't, because that excludes literally every other way that you can buy Dungeons and Dragons products. So it was never true. It never has been true. It never will be true. And the Paizo does release income statements and things like that, like most large companies. Their most profitable year ever, or I'm not sure if it was most profitable, but their highest revenue year ever, I think they did about $26 million in sales. Wizards of the Coast in, I think it was 2022, did somewhere in the neighborhood of $1 billion in sales. Now, Wizards of the Coast doesn't just do Dungeons and Dragons. Magic the Gathering is something that they also do, and that makes up the majority of their sales. The numbers that I saw, if I remember correctly, was D&D at that point was making up something like 30 to 40%. So somewhere between $300 to $400 million. Paizo's best year ever, they did $26 million in revenue. Wizards of the Coast did $300 million. They're not competing. They never have. D&D is the most popular RPG in the world. It has always been the most popular RPG in the world. And unless D&D stops making books, it will probably remain the most popular RPG in the world. So in a 3-minute video about tabletop RPGs on YouTube, they're going to have mostly D&D content. Because if you go to YouTube, it's mostly D&D content. And all the people that are getting up in arms about this are dipshits or grifters. I'm sorry. I'm done playing this game. I'm done giving them the benefit of the doubt. This is bullshit. You just want people to be angry because anger views get you more views. And I will admit, the reason I watched this particular content creator, because I hate their content, because it's all massively skewed. The person themselves has no idea what they're talking about, but they talk from a position of authority, and they just constantly misstate facts or outright blatantly lie and use that to create these convincing arguments, and people think that they know what they're talking about. They're complete dipshit. I watched their video because they said the D&D YouTube scandal is getting worse. So I'm like, okay. I skipped the last one they talked about, this D&D YouTube scandal. I'm like, fine. Let me see. Maybe there is something that's going on. Because again, I did talk about how in the tabletop RPG community in general, it was discovered that most people, specifically in the indie scene, blatantly lie about other people in the indie scene and spread false statements that claim that there's rampant bits of harassment and other really, really bad things that are completely made up. And yeah, so being in the tabletop RPG space, and D&D is not immune from this. As I talked about in the video, Mike Merles got blasted for something that he never did. It was completely fake. It wasn't based on someone misheard something and then they assumed something else. No, people literally just made it up on a 4chan. They just made it up and started spreading it like it was true, and then everybody grasped onto it. It was never true. It was never based on anything real. It was entirely fabricated. So this new drama is the RPG category. The tabletop RPG category on YouTube is called Dungeons and Dragons, which is evil because Dungeons and Dragons is not tabletop RPG. It is. Just fuck off for a second here. And people are getting really, really upset because D&D content gets more views. And so what happens, according to this absolute dipshit, if someone's interested in getting into tabletop RPGs and then go to YouTube for it, they're going to be funneled towards D&D. And that means they're exclusively going to play D&D and never look at another RPG ever because the only thing that they see on YouTube is D&D. And everybody knows, if you don't see it on YouTube, if it is not forced upon you through the homepage on YouTube, then it doesn't exist. And it's physically impossible for anyone to start playing D&D and then get interested in a different RPG. It's not possible. The only way that can happen is if YouTube forcibly puts on their screen non-D&D content. If they don't see non-D&D content, then it's impossible for them to find another RPG, because RPGs didn't exist before YouTube. Like, before YouTube, D&D, nobody knew what D&D was. It definitely did not spark this huge thing called the Satanic Panic in the 80s, and it definitely was not the inspiration for a movie called Mazes and Monsters that starred a very, very young Tom Hanks that tried to paint people that play Dungeons and Dragons as mentally unstable and tried to claim that somebody played Dungeons and Dragons and then it caused them to murder someone else. That definitely didn't happen in the 80s. There's definitely never been an entire anime series that was literally just a retelling of a D&D campaign. And White Wolf and stuff, that stuff didn't exist before YouTube. Vampire the Masquerade, 100% did not exist in the 90s. Neither did Shadowrun. And here's the crazy thing. What definitely didn't happen in the 90s is there wasn't multiple Shadowrun video games that existed on home consoles and stuff like that. Because again, without YouTube, people can't find out about RPGs. And so before YouTube, RPGs didn't exist. For those of you that are still here and are wondering what the fuck I'm talking about, none of this is true. Again, people are getting very, very upset because if you're making tabletop RPG content on YouTube, like I am, you are heavily incentivized to make D&D content or D&D related content because you will get more views and it will be recommended more by YouTube. And people think that that proves some kind of creepy relationship or unethical relationship between YouTube and Dungeons and Dragons. It's not. D&D is the most popular RPG in the world. It has always been the most popular RPG in the world. It will probably always be the most popular RPG in the world. You want to know why? Because it's existed for 50 years. And the people that are making it now have been playing it for most of those 50 years. It created the genre. And it's a really well-designed system. 5th edition is probably the best version of D&D from a design standpoint that has ever existed. Does that mean that it's the most fun to play? No, that's 4th edition. Does that mean it's the bestest, and it's the only one? No. There are a lot of people like 3rd edition and 3.5. Most of them play Pathfinder now. There's a lot of people that still like 2nd edition. There's a huge resurgence of people that really enjoy 1st edition and basic edition that have formed this group called the OSR, the Old School Revolution, I think it's called, or something, Old School Renaissance, something like that. Something with an R. So there are a lot of people that play older versions of D&D. However, as far as ease of use, ease of introducing to new players, the ability to create a vast array of very different characters and to be able to tell a massive plethora of different kinds of stories and a lot of different tools that the DM can use, D&D is really hard to argue with. The reason it's existed for 50 years is because it's worth it for 50 years. Now, does this mean that if your first game was D&D that you're never going to play anything else? No. Again, I started tabletop RPGs with D&D 4th edition. The first game I ever ran was a 4th edition game. The first campaign I ever created was a 4th edition campaign. The first RPG that I ever streamed was on Google Hangouts, back when that was a thing. And it was D&D 4th edition. And it was with a bunch of people who had never played any RPG before. And it was an absolute blast. Now, other than talking about stuff like this, I don't actually talk about Dungeons and Dragons almost at all. And I haven't for almost a year now. I stopped doing in-depth reviews for the various D&D books because people just weren't into them, and I was focusing on other RPGs. I started focusing on Essence 20. I love Essence 20. I'm going to be doing more Essence 20 stuff. I also had a blast with Fabula Ultima. I run a Cypher system game. Before that, I ran an Open Legend game. I have run Dune and Avatar and one-page RPGs. I created my own one-page RPG called Courage and Cuddles, where you play stuffed animals and other things that protect dreaming children from nightmares. So the idea that if you're introduced to D&D that's the only thing that you ever play isn't true. It has never been true. It will never be true. The vast majority of people that play RPGs right now started on D&D. It is exceedingly rare for someone to have their first RPG not be D&D. And yet we have tons and tons of RPGs on the market right now. We are in kind of a renaissance for indie RPGs right now, with just how many amazing, interesting RPGs. Like I mentioned before, Daggerheart is coming out, the open beta playtest is coming out on the 12th of March. And right now, according to their press release, their projected release date for Daggerheart is in 2025. Candela Obscura came out last summer and has been doing remarkably well. Avatar Legends is doing super well. Vampire the Masquerade and the World of Darkness games in general have had a resurgence that are doing remarkably well. The Essence 20 games keep releasing books. So those things are really cool. I just got an email from Modiphius. Modiphius makes the Dune RPG. They also make Star Trek Adventures and then a shit ton of other RPGs. They have officially gotten permission from Terry Pratchett's estate. For those of you who don't know, Terry Pratchett was an author. He passed away, unfortunately. Terry Pratchett was an author. He created the Discworld series. Incredibly popular fantasy novel series. Modiphius has acquired the rights to create a Discworld tabletop RPG that they will be kickstarting in late 2024. And they're already signing people up for a newsletter to continue putting things out about that. I currently have RPGs for Highlander, Pacific Rim. I want to look up because it's upsetting just how many systems I have. So I have Crow, as in the old 90s movie The Crow, Escape from New York, Highlander, Kong Skull Island, Pacific Rim, Rambo, Total Recall, and Universal Soldier. All of those use the Everyday Heroes RPG. Of the stuff that I have in here, what I mean by is I have a folder of RPGs that I have in my computer. I have 13th Age. I have the Age system, which includes both Fantasy Age and Modern Age, which are great systems. Alice is Missing, Avatar Legends, Break, which hopefully it was an RPG that I kickstarted last year or the year before. It's been a while. It looks like it's just about to go to print, and so I'm hoping to do an in-depth review of the Break core book because it's amazing and I love it. Candela Obscura, Castle and Crusades, Conan, Cyberpunk 2020, Cypher, D&D and many versions, Daylight, the Dishonored RPG, Dune, Adventures in the Imperium, Dungeon Call Classics, Esper Genesis, Everyday Heroes, Essence 20, which is 4 different RPG systems, Transformers, Power Rangers, G.I. Joe, and My Little Ponies, Fabula Ultima, the Fallout RPG, Fallout Wasteland Warfare, the Fate system, the Feast of Legend RPG, which is the RPG that was created by Wendy's as an advertisement for Wendy's food, and it is the funniest fucking thing I've ever seen. One day I'm going to run a Feast of Legends one-shot, just to show you the nonsense that is that game. There is a Final Fantasy RPG 3rd edition. Somebody made a Final Fantasy RPG. It is completely unauthorized. It's not the one that I did the The 5th edition conversion one. This is a completely unique Final Fantasy RPG that I found on the web. Forbidden Lands, GURPS, Ironsworn, Lancer, which is amazing, Laser and Feelings, and the billions of other versions of that. There is a Log Horizon RPG that only exists in Japan, and I somehow found an English translation that is a bunch of Excel spreadsheets. That is crazy. Masks, Mecha and Monsters, Mutant Chronicles 3rd Edition, Mutant Year Zero, Open Legend, Pathfinder, Shadowrun, Solo RPG Adventures. That's just a bunch of different ways to do solo RPG stuff. Ignore that. That's not its own thing. Star Trek Adventures, the Star Wars RPG, which has been 2 different flavors of that. Starfinder, the Stargate RPG, Stars Without Numbers, Suited, Sword World, which is the RPG from Japan that I'm trying to find an English translation of. Tales of the Loop, Talisman Adventures, Terrain, The One Ring, Traveler, Vaesen, Warhammer 40k, Warhammer Age of Sigmar, Soulbound, World of Darkness, which is a bunch of different RPGs that includes Changeling, Mage the Ascension, Vampire the Masquerade, Werewolf the Apocalypse, Wraith the Oblivion, Hunter the Reckoning, and I think there might be one more in there. Worlds Without Number, and then I found a random Zelda RPG somewhere on the internet. There are tons of RPGs. And there's even more. Like, there's currently a Paranoia bundle, I think, on Humble Bundle. There was recently. Right now, there's a Dune Humble Bundle on Humble Bundle that I'm probably going to pick up, because while I have the core book of Dune, that is the only thing I have of Dune. And this has a crap ton of other stuff, and it's $18. It's amazing. So the idea that if you start with D&D and only see D&D content, you will never ever do anything else. Dimension 20 plays almost exclusively did a D&D. Critical Role plays a lot of different systems, including a bunch of nonsense that Matt just makes up. Again, the Elden Ring one-shot, he made up this system. If you guys watched my video about how to create an action tabletop RPG, I referenced the Elden Ring one-shot. He just made up a fucking system. There are, and the fun part, like the RPGs that I listed are the RPGs that I physically own. There's a shit ton more that I don't own, like Blades in the Dark, the various Powered by the Apocalypse systems, that are just, there's shit tons of them. Blades of the Dark is not Powered by the Apocalypse, it's a different system, but I believe there's a bunch of RPGs that use Blades of the Dark as well. The Cypher system in and of itself has a bunch of different kind of sub-systems in it, like the Strange and Numenera and other stuff that all use the Cypher system as their core thing, but then have other stuff that they do. And it's just, it is nonsense how many RPGs out there. And yes, on YouTube, it is mostly D&D content, because that's what makes money. And we need to stop pretending that making money is somehow a bad thing. Every single person in the world makes money. It's how every society that currently exists works, is you do something to create something that you can use to get the things that you need. Money in and of itself is not bad. Capitalism is not bad. It is not great, but compared to the other economic systems that exist or have been theorized about, it is by far the best. Every other economic system runs into massive problems. It ends up getting people killed. Capitalism is the least worst system. So we need to stop talking about, treating this as like, oh my God, that means that, if D&D is popular, then it's going to kill indie RPGs. It's not. And it's never going to. D&D has been competing with other RPGs since the 80s, and it came out in the 70s. For a while in the 90s, White Wolf was set to replace D&D as the most popular RPG in the world, and then White Wolf proved that bad management can and will destroy an extremely profitable company. Paizo keeps wanting to say that they're going to supplant D&D. They're not, because they are D&D. They fill the exact same place they fill the exact same need in this space. They are a high fantasy tabletop RPG that uses a class system. It's the same thing as D&D. They can separate, and Pathfinder 4th edition is literally D&D. Like, they just changed some words around and add some quality of life stuff. It's D&D. 2nd edition is not quite D&D, but it's close enough that you're generally not going to be playing both D&D and Pathfinder 2nd edition for different reasons, other than this group likes D&D and this group likes Pathfinder 2nd edition. Pathfinder's never going to supplant D&D because it can't. If something's going to supplant D&D, it's going to fill a different niche. Like I said, the reason that White Wolf was so close to beating D&D in the 90s is because it was entirely different. Nowadays, there are so many different things. Theoretically, Powered by the Apocalypse could one day kind of, quote-unquote, supplant D&D, simply because there's just so many different versions of it. And it is very easy to get into. Compared to a lot of other RPGs, Powered by the Apocalypse in general is very, very simple to get into. Trying to think of other RPGs on the market right now. People are claiming that Daggerheart is going to be the D&D killer. I sincerely doubt it. Again, until the 12th, the only thing that I can talk about is the stuff that I've seen in public. And from the stuff that I've seen in public, I think it looks really cool. I don't think it has the power to supplant D&D. Same thing is true with like MCDM's RPG system. People are like, yeah, that's going to take out D&D. It's not. It's going to be super cool, but it's not going to be Dungeons and Dragons. Nothing, like I said, for the most part, I don't believe anything is ever going to supplant D&D. It is too entrenched in the market, and I don't believe that's a bad thing. As long as Dungeons and Dragons keeps itself in kind of a middle ground where 5th edition is neither super crunchy nor is it super rules light. It's right in the middle. And as long as D&D stays there, it is always going to have a place in the market as an infection vector where people can get into D&D and they can start discovering the things that they like. If they think there's too many rules and too many limitations in D&D, they're going to shift to something more rules-like Powered by the Apocalypse or Open Legend or something like that. If they think, if they like D&D but they feel like there's just not enough to it, then they're going to shift to something more crunchy like Pathfinder or GURPS if they're masochists. The things like that. So D&D is always going to have a place in the tabletop RPG market, and a lot of times it is a fantastic infection vector, and is it a fantastic kind of universal language, for lack of a better term. Fun fact, growing up in a conservative Christian household with a former pastor as a father and a mother who worked in the church office, I lived at church. And I started getting bored with just listening to sermons about the same stuff over and over and over again. Because remarkably enough, the Bible hasn't changed in about 1,500, almost 2,000 years. It's the same Bible. However, I did start getting interested in things that were kind of theology adjacent. And one of those was a field of study called apologetics. Apologetics is the scientific defense of the Bible, basically using science to kind of show aspects of the Bible are true. And it involves a lot more than just science. It involves history and stuff like that. One of the things that was talked about in one of these apologetics classes is the idea that because one of the arguments against kind of Christianity and the divinity of Jesus is, well, why in the world would God wait so long to save his chosen people? Like, we have the entire Old Testament, which covers thousands of years of history. And at any point in that time, God could have just sent Jesus into the world and saved everybody instead of just focusing on his chosen people, which was the Jewish people. And so one of the arguments, well, why didn't he come up earlier? And it's a remarkably complex topic, but one of the things was when Jesus was born, he was born at the exact perfect time for his message to spread really, really far, really, really quickly. There was a number of things that were necessary for that to have happened. One of them was infrastructure had to exist. And because the Roman Empire was massive, and the thing that Romans liked to do was build roads, they created an infrastructure system that would rival just about anything else for hundreds of years. There are still Roman roads that are in use today. They were remarkably good at that. And because the Roman Empire took over most of the quote-unquote known world at that point, they created this infrastructure. They also did this nifty thing where they created a trade language. Everybody in the Roman Empire was able to understand each other to a point. There was a universal spread of language. I can't remember what language that they spoke in the Roman. I don't think it was Latin, because I don't think that came until later. But anyway, my knowledge of history sucks. We had the proliferation of the Greek language, because Greek was considered the scientific language at the time. And then they had the more kind of common languages to speak. And so you had this kind of universal language going around. And you had infrastructure. And so it was the exact perfect time to have that particular thing happen. Now, whether you want to believe that or not, that's beside the point. This is not a discussion about religion. What it is a discussion about is that idea of a universal language. Having a language or something that people can reference is essential for a community to form. There has to be some sort of universal communication that can happen. And Dungeons & Dragons provides that for the tabletop RPG community. You can relate everything to Dungeons & Dragons, and I very often do it here because it is a unifying subject. Most people in the tabletop RPG space are at the very least aware of Dungeons & Dragons. In fact, I don't believe you can be in the tabletop RPG space without at least acknowledging that Dungeons & Dragons exist. The vast majority of people in the TTRPG space have played D&D at least once or have at least read a book. So D&D is a universal language for us. And that is an extremely useful thing. Because instead of having to teach players a brand new idea, like quantifying ability scores that allow you to do things and interact with the world, we can just go, oh, it's kind of like D&D, but we change these things. That group understanding creates a significantly easier on-roading ramp. So it is not a bad thing that D&D is the default tabletop RPG. There's a lot of reasons for that. They're not bad. D&D in and of itself is not a bad game. It's not an evil game. Wizards of the Coast is not an evil company. The vast majority of the quote-unquote evil things that they have done have been lies. And the few the things that they have done that have been questionable, I'm still relatively convinced that there were people that were working for D&D that were actively trying to sabotage it. And we know this to be true because during the whole OGL debacle, someone that claimed to be and was proven to be, according to the people that talked to them, an employee of D&D, outright made shit up and spread it as truth. And they got caught lying, and so they made up more shit, and then got caught lying again, and then just disappeared off the face of the planet. So we do know somebody at D&D, probably multiple people, were actively trying to sabotage Dungeons & Dragons. So, yeah. Read that weed whatever you want to, but D&D is not bad. D&D is not evil. People that play D&D are not stupid. They are not indoctrinated. It is a very easy system to get into. There is a great culture around it. There's also a really negative culture around it too, but that's true about anything big. And it is incredibly fun to play. That's how it works. So all of this drama about YouTube favoring D&D, YouTube doesn't favor D&D. Tabletop RPG players favor D&D. They always have. They always will. So stop trying to say that there's some conspiracy on YouTube or that this is somehow evil or wrong. No. Tabletop RPG players prefer D&D. That's how it works. It's how it's always been. Every single number we've ever seen proves this. And that's not a bad thing. If you personally don't like D&D, congratulations. Like I said, I'm a bit burnt out on D&D as well. I have one campaign right now that's getting close to its end, and another one that I'm probably not going to run to level 20. I'm probably going to end the Kiki campaign probably about anywhere between level 12 and level 15. And then the next campaigns that are broadcast on my YouTube channel are probably not going to be D&D. At least one of them is not going to be DM'd by me. And I've already talked to my players and told them, yeah, one of you guys gets to run something next. I don't care what it is. I will help you up with streaming assets. I will physically stream it for you, so all you have to do is run it. But I am going to get a chance to not be the dungeon master for a little bit. So yeah, does that mean I think D&D is evil or people that exclusively D&D are stupid or dumb or anything? No, I'm just burnt out on D&D. And there's so many different games out there that I can't help but try more. That's how I found Essence. Well, actually, I found Essence 20 because they said Power Rangers and I came running. But then I got addicted to Essence 20 and it's now become one of the most popular things on this channel. And again, once Daggerheart comes out, I'm pretty sure that's going to be at least, maybe not a huge focus on the channel, but it's going to be talked about a lot because, again, from the little bit of knowledge that we've had about how it works and everything that is publicly available, it's different. And I've said that before. It's different, and I like that. Candela Obscura is different, and I like that. Break, as soon as the damn thing comes out, please publish this book. It's awesome. Break is different, and I like it. One of my favorite things about Break, they have a class that I can never remember what it's called. But, like, they have a bunch of different kind of traditional classes. Like, you have your rogue types, and you have your, like, ranger types. Then they have a class that's basically a shopkeeper or just a regular person that just accidentally gets involved in adventuring. And their kind of class feature ability thing is they have a massive backpack. And as you level up, you can eventually turn the backpack into a shield that protects you or a weapon. You can beat people to death with your backpack. It is the most amazing character class I have ever heard of. Because the whole kind of power fantasy of the class is just you accidentally became an adventurer. You are not qualified. You are not prepared. This is not what you should be doing. But you are. It's amazing. I don't know why there isn't a D&D, or I can tell you exactly why there's a D&D class, because D&D is based around the idea that you are heroes, not you accidentally stepped in front of a dragon and now you're involved in a plot to save the world. But I think that's amazing. And I love stuff like that. And again, I started in D&D. I played D&D almost exclusively for years. I was an Adventurers League local coordinator. I ran the D&D Adventures League program for multiple game stores. I helped run it for a convention. I did the convention circuit where literally all I would do would be play D&D for anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day, a few weekends a year. I was very, very Dungeons and Dragons, and now the only time I think about Dungeons and Dragons is when I'm doing my prep work for for my 2 campaigns, which will be ending, one sooner than another. And that's it. So it doesn't brainwash you. It doesn't force you here. Like, I watch tabletop RPG content on YouTube. And despite the fact that the vast majority of it is D&D related, I still find shit tons of other stuff. I started, for the most part, I generally don't go to YouTube anymore for my non-D&D content that I want to watch or consume. Now I've started going to Discords and stuff like that. Discords are amazing. Like, I'm part of the Cypher System Discord. I'm part of the Fabula Ultima Discord that I really, really like. I joined the Open Legend Discord, which is kind of sad because Open Legend is kind of dead now. But it had a lot of potential. And then, again, bad management can ruin a beautiful thing. And I don't know if they've gotten out of... If you guys are interested, someday, maybe I'll make a video talking about exactly what happened to Open Legend, because it started off really, really amazing, and then some real shady stuff happened behind the scenes, and then it died, and then it got taken over by someone else years ago, and since then they've been trying to dig themselves out of the hole that the shady stuff put them into, and I don't know if they ever got out of it. But it was set to be the next D&D killer, and to be blunt, it could have done it. And by it could have done it, it never would have done it. But it was a really, really solid system. It had the backing of some really amazing people. Mercer, Matt Mercer, what do you call it? They got his opinion on it, or he helped. He gave some feedback on it, and they specifically listed him. Ed Greenwood, the guy that created the Forgotten Realms, also helped, had some input on it. So, I mean, they had a lot of good stuff there, and it just was real bad management. But anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I'm going to let you guys all go. But, yeah. See you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.